Bradford Teaching Hospitals. John, I apologise that we are a little pressed for time in relation to the excellent briefing actually that's been produced by your team on the NHS White Paper, Integration and Innovation. And we've suggested in the margins that it might be taken to note, but I will pass to you to ask if there's anything you wish to emphasise regarding that before we move on to the Pathology Joint Venture Board. So, colleagues, paper 14, John, what would you wish to say, please?
Yes, no problem, Max. We can do this in literally 30 seconds. The paper was there to note. I guess it's kind of the starting gun for board. This will be a long game. We don't have to do anything in particular on this paper today. This is background. It explains to you, is kind of a synopsis of the legislation and the white paper and so on. Tomorrow, the conversation we have at Place about our integrated care partnership and what that means and how that works and how it links to the West Yorkshire ICS will be a really good conversation, a really good place to get your head around some of the issues and what it's going to mean for us. And we've already scheduled for our May board a discussion around this. And I think the timing works really well because by then you'll have had an opportunity to take part in the discussion tomorrow, to digest some of the things that will be coming out anyway. You know, we'll be starting to see the shape of the legislation then. We expect the bill to be published in late spring. And it will go into Parliament for its second reading probably in the summer. So the timing's great. We don't need to have any further discussion on this in particular today, but if anybody wants a conversation offline about this, I'm very happy to do that. Any kind of follow-up you wish to do. We don't need to do any more than that today. It's there to note.
Thank you very much indeed, John. Our colleagues content to do that. I hope you've had the chance to read it. It was really well produced. So thanks, John, to your team for bringing that together for us. And in the absence of any immediate concerns regarding that, I'm going to move on to paper 15, which is the change of representation on the Board of Pathology joint venture. So, John, again, you bring a suggestion or proposal to board regarding that.
Yeah, the paper speaks for itself. Since the start of the pathology joint venture, 2 directors from each trust have sat on the board of the pathology JV. Originally, it was myself and Brian Gill. Brian has been succeeded on his retirement by Matthew Horner. And the proposal here is that I should be replaced by Paul Rice. He's got very sharp elbows. Actually, it makes a lot of sense for Paul to pick up the mantle. Because at the point in its evolution that the joint venture is at now, the digital agenda is incredibly important, both on the West Yorkshire model, where we're looking at collaborative solutions and consolidation across West Yorkshire, but in particular within our joint venture, where to take it to the next level, there are some digital challenges we need to address. So I have discussed this in principle with the joint venture board. They'd be delighted to have Paul on board. It makes a lot of sense because he's a director both here and at Airedale. And this is just asking the board of Bradford Teaching Hospitals if you're happy to support Paul becoming one of the 2 director representatives on the boards of the joint venture. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Does anybody require any further detail regarding that or have any questions in relation to the proposal? Can I assume that we endorse the proposal and that Paul represents us alongside Matthew now on the joint pathology board venture? Yep. Thank you very much, everybody. That's great. And I turn now to section 4E, papers 16, which is the report from the February Audit Committee and the annual report provided by Barry. So Barry, shall I turn to you and ask if there's anything in particular you want board to note? I know that the papers are for us to receive assurance regarding the work of the Audit Committee.
No, as regards both reports, both the summary of matters discussed at the February meeting, and with apologies for the delay in it being presented to board, the annual report, which is effectively a summation of the previous year's reports from time to board. They're there for information and for assurance. Nothing further to say. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Barry, and for your leadership within the Audit Committee. Thank you. Is there any questions, detail, anything arisen from those reports that anybody wants to check? Or are we content to be assured by the detail in there? I think we are. So thank you, Barry, and they are noted and assurances so received. Thank you. Moving to section 5, our governance section with 3 items in there. We have a ratification of a decision that we used the development session where we're constituted together as board members to think about the data centre business case. So Laura, I'll turn to you, will I, and just ask you to remind us what that was and the ratification that you now seek at Public Board.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think as you've said at the board development session in February, the board was advised of an investment required in the trust data centre infrastructure, and that was agreed at the time. And I think you specifically asked Barry as Audit Committee Chair and Julie as the champion on the Finance and Performance Academy to confirm their agreement with that, and that was fully supported. So in line with the standing orders, the board is just asked to ratify that decision, and I'm sure Paul can answer if there's any specific queries around the case.
Thanks very much, Laura. Does anybody require any further detail or have any additional queries regarding the ratification of that matter previously discussed, please? It's laid out faithfully and properly in the report, and so I'm going to assume that board members are content to ratify. Thanks very much, everybody. Paper 18 relates to the emerging and continuing roles of non-exec directors as champions in particular areas. So again, hopefully colleagues have had the chance to read that. I bring it to you as a result of my work as chairman, obviously in allocating these particular roles, but also in my role on the national stage in relation to a rethink about these roles. And what emerged was, I particularly noted that with the emergence of the Health and Wellbeing Guardian and the Maternity Guardian, both of which, thank you, were taken on by Selina, that it caused me to question with our governance colleagues, well, how many of these are there? And it turned out that when they did a literature review of the requirements, then there were 14 such required roles. So that got people thinking actually nationally about how these are growing. Can we really expect all that of non-exec directors who are asked to give a day or so a week of their time to the business of the trust? But also, and it's a discussion I've had with Barry in his role as chair of audit, that this kind of potential emergence of mission creep into executive roles amongst some of the proposed terms of reference for these particular NED champion roles. So it's becoming a kind of important issue that's being picked up nationally. So you'll see from the note that I'm involved in reviewing those. I suspect that there will be changes, but given that no decision has been made yet, I shouldn't report further than to say that there is a national group looking closely at whether these particular roles are particularly required. We have shown indicative allocations to the 14 areas that we are required to do, and it would be fair for me to report to board that not in each and every one of those is there active NED involvement at the moment, pending the further guidance nationally. It would be fair to note, however, that ALTAF has been doing some considerable work and analysis regarding procurement, that I do get involved in complaints oversight, and I'm copied into a regular report regarding that, that John does take some interest in responsibility for doctors' disciplinary proceedings. I have conversations with our medical examiner regarding the leave for mortality, and as I said before, Selina is active in the maternity and wellbeing guardian roles. So you're asked to note those indicative allocations, please, and the fact that there is ongoing discussions regarding their appropriateness at a national level. Does anybody have any further questions or detail required of me? Or can I take that you note the current position that we're at and my offer to keep us well briefed on what the national guidance might be revised towards? Okay, thanks everybody. And I'll move finally to on governance to item 19, which is the board work plan, helpfully produced by Laura and the team. Lord, I'll turn to you because I know you received some written submissions from Barry, our Chair of Audit, who made some suggestions, and I think we were able to adopt all of those. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's right, Chair. Yeah. So I think there was a query around how regularly the board considers the corporate strategy. I think that's just on for September at the moment, but yeah, we'll agree maybe a more regular report, possibly a biannual report around that. I think there's also a suggestion to clarify that the board will also receive the ISA 260, which is the external auditors report and their letter of representation alongside the annual report and accounts. And then a few annual items, so clarifying that the board will receive the annual report from the regulation committee and the audit committee. And the board will also see the annual reports from the academies, which will probably be appended to the regulation committee annual report. And then also an item around the board annual self-assessment, which I think will be part of the well-led assessment review. So I'll add it on there.
Yes, yeah, ideal. Thanks very much, Laura. So again, colleagues, you've had a chance to look at the work plan. And can I commend Laura's work so far on this, because you know, Laura's come into a job here where she's had a complete overhaul of governance systems, and beyond that, she's also doing a lot of work in pulling us together and getting this water board assurance working for us. So thank you, Laura, for everything you're doing. But has anything been missed, or does anybody have any further suggestions in relation to our work plan beyond those that Laura's articulated, received from Barry? Are we content to endorse that work plan as shown for the time being? Yep, I think we are. No further suggestions. So thanks again, Laura, for pulling that together. And we work according to that for the time being then, yes? Okay, thanks very much indeed. I'll move to meeting outcomes. There was no other business. Has anything arisen beyond that we might have captured as actions for referral to boards? Other board meetings or committees or elsewhere, academies, etc. So obviously we've captured things as we've gone along, and I don't think there's any particular outcomes we need to report anywhere, is there? We've picked up on additional work to be done, so I think colleagues are happy with that. Nothing specifically to note. So we meet again as a board on the 20th of May. So another couple of months' time. And again, I'll just bring your attention to the annexes. And I do know colleagues have looked at the papers prior to this meeting. So thanks very much. So in the absence of anything else further being said, I'm going to pull this open board meeting to a close now. And we will be going, directors, into a closed board session where some matters are being raised that ought not at this time to be in the public domain. So we hold a closed board meeting. Okay. So the open board meeting is concluded. Thank you everybody for your attendance.